Welcome to the Coaches Show. I'm your host, Darrin Joins, Williamson County Schools Athletic Director, and today we're going to be talking at Fairview High School and Page High School football. We're going to start off with Coach Chris Hughes, the head man at Fairview High School, the local boy, done well, or maybe it's done good, Coach. I don't know. It's one of the two if you're trying to use slang. But Coach, I certainly appreciate you being here.
No problem.
Hey, you guys are coming into this week's game at Dixon. You're 6-1 with one of those wins, a no contest from East Hickman. They couldn't play because of COVID issues. You're 4-0 in the region, and once again, you have a stranglehold on that region championship. Coach, I think it's one of those things that if people don't watch, they'll let you guys be a victim of your own success. You guys, region championships just seem to be what you guys do. But you can attest to this as a coach. That's not easy to win it every year.
No, and it hasn't always been that way here either. Many years I didn't win it, and changing of regions. This region, for us, has been good, so we've been able to maintain it for the last 4. But we still have to win our final game against Stewart County to win it this year, and they're a good 6-1 football team as well. So we'll see the last week of the season.
Well, my money's on the Yellow Jackets for sure. You start off this year, Coach, with a big win in the Battle of 840, 18-3 over Page High School. And that turned out, I think a lot of people were saying, Page is down, and maybe they are relative to last year. But I think all of us take a look at what they've done the past few weeks. That's a pretty good football team, too. So you got to feel good about that. You get that win over East Hickman, the COVID win, then you follow that up with a win over Cheatham, and then the bottom falls out, so to speak. Your school closes for 14 days. You go from September 4th until September 26th without a game, and then even at that, you've got to change up your schedule a little bit. You end up rearranging your schedule. You travel to Lebanon, and I give you credit, Coach. You were taking any game that you can get, and you play a 6A Lebanon team who right now, as of today, is sitting at 5-3, and you guys have a shootout now. Final score 49-35 in that particular game. And you had to feel good about not only that day, but how you've progressed since. I looked this up, Coach. You've outscored your last 3 region opponents, and that's since this Lebanon game, 119 to 22. So not only that day against Lebanon, going all those days without playing, but really since then, your team to me seems to really be hitting its stride.
Well, we're doing what we can. I don't think we're not clean by any means. We're making mistakes still. We've got to get a lot better. I feel like some weeks we step backward instead of forward, and a lot of it has to do with playing to the competition that we play against, and also just kind of overlooking, it's hard to convince these guys when a team comes in with a win or 2 wins that they're going to have trouble or that they need to give it. And we kind of, I feel like we went through the motions in a lot of those games and still won by, 4 or 5 touchdowns. But we've got to get ready. And the Page win, that's one thing about playing Coach Rathbone on the first week of the season. Neither one of us have got everything figured out. We've made changes since then, and I know he has too. And his team's a lot better. If we played that team, now it may be a different story. So it's one of those things we're coming in, but this season has been real challenging as far as that. And I'm glad we played Lebanon. That gave us a good test and get us ready for playoffs. I was, trying to find a game. We didn't have a lot of options, and I'm just glad our kids are going to get, knock on wood, 8 games in.
Well, and Coach, something you and I talked about, and this has happened with several teams, that you try to schedule a game, you get a game when you can, and then later in the week something comes up where you're like, man, I wish we would have known that was going to happen, because you and I talked about this. That week you played Lebanon really could have been a week, if they would have played you on Saturday, that you could have played Brentwood, which I thought would have been great, and I know you had talked about you would have been glad to do that.
Well, and Franklin had rescheduled Pope John Paul. They had to get a game. So if we would have knew sooner, and I talked to Coach Webb, we could have played Franklin, which to us is, it's right down the road. It's a lot closer than Brentwood. And I think would have been a better matchup. Brentwood would have hammered us pretty good, but at the same time, it would have made us better. I'd like to see what we can do. That's why I like the WCS Jamboree that we didn't get to have. We don't get to play those teams, but I like to to test it out. I don't want to test it too much and demoralize my kids, but at the same time, I like to put them up against good competition. And our kids feel like they can play with everybody in the county. So they're maybe we've done a good job brainwashing them. I mean, we're smaller, but you got to put 11 out, and we've got to. And what happens is, you know, our 11 are pretty good, but as you get on through the game, just like at Lebanon, we were winning 14-13 at halftime. But that depth really shows up in the third and fourth quarter when we're gassed and the other team's throwing kids in. There's not a big drop off. Well,
Coach, you talk about that confidence that you're guys have, and I think that starts with you. You can tell by watching your team play. You know, you got the chip on your shoulder a little bit when you play those larger schools, but you can tell from you as well as your team that you're not going to back down from anyone. And again, I give you credit looking at this week's game, even though it's a team that's not real strong in the 6A level, but still, when you move up from your level all the way to 6A, there's going to still be those depth issues, even with Dixon, correct?
Oh, big time. I mean, Dixon's going to give us a big challenge. I mean, they're a 6A school. We're a 3A school. They should beat us. I mean, any 6A school that's even like Lebanon too. I mean, they're not powerhouse 6A. They're not Maryville and Oakland, but at the same time, they're 6A. They've got more kids. They've got more choices. They've got, you know, it's a whole different ball game. And I feel like our kids are excited about the challenge. And we beat Dixon last year, which this Dixon team is a lot better. But we're looking forward to it. And like I said, it just makes us sharper for the playoffs.
Coach, talk about, you know, you said those region championships, and obviously you haven't done it yet this year, but well on your way, you control your own destiny. You talked about that Stewart County game this week will determine the region champion. But talk about the difference. You know, when you first got there to Fairview, thinking about scheduling any 6A team, I'm sure was a foreign concept to you.
When I got here, we could schedule anybody we wanted to. And that made it, you know, I think you can schedule yourself in and out of a job. If I take a job and I schedule, you know, if I schedule Oakland and Brentwood and Franklin and Independence, and I'm at a, you know, a school that's building and trying to rebuild a program, you're going to not have a job in 2 years. So you've got to. So we found, you know, we got fortunate. We started out with a region with Giles County, Marshall County, and all them, and we weren't picked to win a game. We ended up going 4-6. And it might have been 6-4. It might have been one of my best years coaching because we weren't expected to do anything. Now we can go 8-2 or 9-1 and people complain. So it's a different animal now. But I mean, we won. Fairview might win a region championship one every 3 or 4 years, or maybe once every 5 or 6 years. And now, if we can win this one and finish this out, we will have not lost a region game in 5 years.
Well, and you just take a look at athletics in the school in general. You know, I was in the set with you, in fact, at the district championship game last year. Your basketball team, I think that would end up being their fourth consecutive district championship. And before that, you had to go back to the 60s. So you're seeing at the basketball level, obviously what your wrestling team is doing. So lots of great things happening out there at Fairview, and certainly the football program is one of those examples. Let's talk about this, Coach, real quick. Let's look at the postseason. The metro schools, you know, they've kind of been a thorn in your side. You and I have talked about that a little bit playoff-wise. Obviously, very talented teams at your level from the metro schools. In fact, I would argue that those schools could move up in Nashville and be better teams than they are at their level. So I think some of their best teams are at that 3A and 4A level. To me, this year feels a little bit different. One, because of your team. I mean, this is a team that you were very excited about coming into the year. And then also, they've kind of had a little bit of an uneven season too. So not that you're looking ahead, but if you get matched up with one of those metro teams, especially late in the playoffs, I feel like your confidence level as a team is going to be a little bit different than maybe it has been in the past. Am I correct in saying that?
You are, and at the same time, you know, you can look at it two different ways. Those teams are a little bit fresher than we are. You know, you've got a team that hadn't played many games, and if they get in sync and get in rhythm right when the playoffs start, it's almost like being in mid-season form without all the injuries late in the season. So there's two ways to look at it. I know the Metro coaches have put a good spin on it and told their kids, hey, we're going to be fresher to make this run for the state championship, which that's what I would do if I was there. Here, we're just trying to get better and better so that we can compete with those teams. And don't get it wrong, athlete wise, and my guys know this, we've got good athletes, but we're going to be mismatched when we play Pearl Cone, when we play East Nashville, when we play teams like that. They have more athletes. But I think we can get more out of our athletes, and we can compete with all of those teams.
Coach, let's talk a little offense here in the last few minutes that we have. We'll start with offense and talk about defense as well. You can't really talk about Fairview without talking about Logan Nardozi, young man that, you and I both feel like has a good chance to be a finalist, Mr. Football finalist, certainly at least a semifinalist. Obviously, your season, the way it's gone with missing games, of course, some other teams have that as well. We hope Logan still gets that opportunity to be recognized, but certainly in your program and on your team, it starts with Logan Nardozi.
Well, like I said, he's had 74 carries this year for 575 yards, 11 touchdowns. And, when you talk about a Mr. Football finalist or him having a shot, with him only playing about 3 total games, it's going to be tough statistically wise. But people that know him know that if you plan for Fairview, your first plan is how to stop 2-2. And if you don't stop 2-2, it doesn't really matter what else we do, because we can just do that. He has been very unselfish and very much a team player this year, knowing last game he had 8 carries. He was out at halftime, never complained, never said, I need some stats, nothing like that. Up like that, I told him we have bigger fish to fry. We need him healthy in the playoffs. He may literally have more carries in the playoff games than he does during the 10-game regular season, which is unheard of.
Well, and like you said, Coach, maybe a hidden benefit that you got a fresh Logan Nardozi. Maybe it hurts him individually, statistically wise, Mr. Football wise, but as you said, great young man and very willing to worry about what Fairview's doing before he's worried about what Logan Nardozi's doing. Also, talk about Riley Bennett. There's a young man, great athlete in your school, big time wrestler. To me, he's really maybe been the difference in a lot of ways. He steps in to play quarterback for you this year. Doesn't have a lot of game experience doing that. In fact, Coach, and this could have been a misprint on your roster, but the first roster you sent me this year, I don't even think he was listed as a quarterback at all. Is that something that sort of happened late, or was that just a misprint?
Well, Riley played running back for us last year and played defense. He played everywhere. I mean, Riley's an athlete, can do anything you want. He played quarterback as a freshman, decided he didn't really like that. As things developed last year, he started asking me who's going to quarterback. I said, well, we're looking, we're doing. And then basically he won the job. I mean, and won it far and away. Like, he can throw the ball, he can run. What I really like about Riley is his decision making. He is 47 for 81 passing, 744 yards, 9 touchdowns. But this is the stat I love, Darrin: 0 interceptions.
Wow.
He hasn't fumbled the ball. He has 0 turnovers in our 6 games that we've actually played. And that's even against a really hard-hitting Lebanon team and a really hard-hitting Page team. So him not turning the ball over has kept us in games, even, all of the games that we've had. And then he's also been out at halftime. So he hasn't had that. He's played no defense, which he's a very good defensive player. But Riley has been not a surprise to me, but a lot of people say, man, well, how do you get these quarterbacks? A lot of times, I'll have a sophomore that'll start for 3 years. I love to do that. I love to condition and groom, take a little growing pain their 10th grade year. With Riley, it was so much better than everyone that it was a no-brainer. And he has really blossomed, and he's taken the role of leadership, and he's a competitor. He wants to win, and he takes pride in what he does. He stays after, he gets with the guys on his own on the weekend and still throws routes and stuff. So, he just wants to win, and he's made us tons better this year. You can't focus on 22 now. You have to worry about Riley.
Coach, talk about that defense. I read your comments last week, and obviously it was a game that you comfortably won, but I noticed in your comments, it seems like you're pleased with how that defense is continuing to develop, and you're going to really need them as you start making this postseason run. It can't be just about Nardozi and Bennett and what your offense is doing.
No, and there's been times I felt like I had to put up 40 points to win a game because, we're a little lackadaisical sometimes on the defensive side. They always play hard, but this year, man, we're really clicking. Defense is turning into offense. Brian Kuhn had a strip sack, and Luke Pape recovered for a touchdown. Bryce Fannin is going to intercept the ball every, so many plays. And we are, our young guys that are out there, we're laying the wood. I mean, I love our physicality. I love how they're playing hard. And, you've got to have that to advance into the playoffs. The physicality of us, I've told people forever, on the street, the word is at Fairview is about finesse. When you toughen them up, it's a little bit harder. But this is one of those years, like I feel like both sides of the O-line and D-line are really physical, and they bring it. And a lot of seniors, a lot of big guys. And I'm real happy with Jack Baker, Luke Pate, Brian Kuhn, on down the list, Bruce Johnson. We have some big guys, and they are bringing it. So I'm real happy about the defense. And I think that's going to give us a chance to advance every game, even if we do struggle a little bit on the offensive side.
Well, Coach, we're looking forward to it. Good luck tonight against Dixon County. I did want to mention, too, to our viewers here, because I know this, it got lost probably a little bit because especially so early in the season with COVID and everything that was going on. But you reached win number 100 this year, which is a pretty darn big deal when you're talking about football coaches getting to 100 wins. I mean, if that's 10 wins a year, it takes 10 years to do that. Obviously, not everybody's going to win 10 games a year. So, Coach, we're real proud of you, and I know you've got to be proud of that too.
Yeah, I am. I'm not big on that, but I think having that 100th win in a COVID season is like having your birthday on Christmas. It kind of it out a little bit. But I will say that my 100 win was a 1-0 win over ET COVID. So I may be the only coach in the nation that has that, a 1-0 win on their 100th. It's hard to win 1-0 in football. But anyway, that just is a tribute, Darrin, to all the great players that we've had. Everybody that played for me, a lot of the old players reached out. And I just said, how many of those wins did you have a part in? A lot of those players had a part in like 40 of the wins. I mean, that says something. I mean, without those guys, I really wouldn't have. I may have 2 wins if I did it on my own, maybe none. So I'm glad that I had good players. I'm glad I've got a good community. And you know how I feel about Fairview. This is still the best secret in Williamson County. So we are doing well in everything, and I expect us to bring our A game to Dixon, and then I expect us to move on and go to next week and keep doing the same thing.
Well, Coach, a wise man told me one time that when something's going well, especially for an extended period of time, the person in charge has something to do with it. So I know you're being modest there about that, but certainly you've got a big part of it too, Coach.
Well, I appreciate it. Like I said, I'm fortunate. Somebody had to give me the job too. So there's always somebody to pass that on to. But we'll see how good I coach if there's the talent dries up a little bit. So we may know that later, but right now I'm very fortunate.
Coach, thanks for being here, and we'll be right back on the Coach's Show to talk to Coach Charles Rathbone of Page High School. Welcome back to the Coach's Show. This week we're talking Fairview and Page High School football. Earlier segment, we finished up with Coach Chris Hughes, and now I'm very pleased to have the head football coach at Page High School. Welcome, Coach Charles Rathbone.
How are y'all doing?
Coach, doing great. What a wild year we've had. I know you and I have had some conversations like I have with other coaches, but going in with COVID-19, you've got a young team, which I think kind of adds to the complexity of it, but you have to be pleased with how not only your staff, but really your players have handled all this.
Yeah, I'm happy at how we're developing. I felt like we could have handled it a little bit better to begin with. And, when you're coming back with a lot of guys that haven't played a whole lot and replacing 19, 20 starters and having seniors that are not as vocal as some of the other guys, a great group of seniors. They're just not vocal, leaders. They're just not vocal at this point. So, we had to learn our way and take a few bumps and bruises on the way and go from there.
Coach, you start off the year with the loss in the battle of 18-3 at home versus Fairview, but obviously Fairview's got a really, really good team. In the previous segment, we talked about that game a little bit and how you guys have steadily improved. They were probably closer to their ceiling than you were at the time just because of your youth. And you're rolling out guys, freshmen, sophomores, and when you're talking about doing that on the offensive and defensive lines especially, that's a pretty tough matchup there to start the season, and really any matchup was going to probably feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't help playing. Fairview's a really good football team, and they got a lot of. I'm assuming they're seniors, but a lot of players, a lot of athletes, a lot of guys that can play, and they just executed better than we did. We wasn't. It's different from blocking a blitz in a game than it is from practice, and the receivers running routes, and then they panic a little bit if they feel like they're covered, and the quarterback's taking the right reads. and trying to break in a new running back who has to pick up a blitz. And so, I mean, it was a very tough game. It was a very, very tough first 4 weeks, to be honest with you. I mean, we had we feel like we threw away some opportunities in those games that if we had back now, we think we would be able to capitalize on. But, I think that's every team. We can't sit around and make excuses and whine and cry about it. Everybody struggled. It's just a different time, a different era. And, we just got to fight through and get through these next couple of games and hopefully get into the playoffs and see what we can do once we get in there.
Well, Coach, obviously your team has progressed. You talked about being proud of that. You're now 3-3 heading into tonight's game at home versus Lincoln County. And 2 wins that really stand out to me, and you may disagree with this, but you have that loss at Fairview, and you come right back against Siegel, a game that a lot of people, let's be honest, thought you would lose. You win that game in week 2. And then another game that really stands out to me is last week's region win over Columbia Central. Again, a game that I think on paper people thought you might lose, but really you dominate that game, especially after the half, end up beating them 28-10. Those 2 wins, again, to me, really stand out this year so far.
Yeah, and as a coach, you always think about what could have been or should have been. I keep thinking about the Shelbyville loss. I mean, we drop a couple wide open touchdowns. We have a couple of turnovers inside the 10. I think we're inside their 10-yard line 4 times, don't score any points, and you end up losing that game. And that kind of sticks in your craw a little bit. And the Siegel game, we just kind of outlasted it. Boy, it was hot, and I felt like our guys held it together. And we didn't play particularly well, but we did enough. And then this last week, we executed much better, coming off 2 weeks of quarantines where we haven't been able to play and come back out there. We got off to a little rough start and didn't execute the way we should, but we got better and better and better as the game went along and was able to close it out and put us in pretty good position for tonight.
Coach, and you talk about that quarantine, which I think, again, is especially challenging with a young team. You need every practice rep you can get. I was talking to someone the other day about the Titans. They're out for several days.
Mm-hmm.
They come back and play one of the best games they've probably played really in recent memory against the Bills, but it's a different situation. Those guys are professionals. You're coaching high school guys that are inexperienced. So I would think that missing like you had to miss during quarantine was way more difficult this year than if you would have had that same situation last year when you had such a veteran crew.
Yeah, last year, I don't think we would have missed a beat, and it's because they had so many reps under their belt, and they kind of know the system like the back of their hand. A lot of those guys were here at the Columbia game last week at homecoming, and they'd hear us call play and they know exactly where everybody's supposed to be, which was kind of neat, and they, so that was that's the difference. These guys are still learning where they're supposed to be. And then if that breaks down, where should they go on the scramble drill and those type of things. So I think if it had been last year, it wouldn't have been any problems. But this year, obviously being a young team, it was a few problems, but I will say this, our seniors, our season changed after Lipscomb when our seniors started taking it personal, and then they started taking practice seriously. And you can see the ones that they felt like wasn't carrying their own weight, they may give that little extra pop in practice, or that practice just a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more physical. And those same seniors carried us through that COVID, those 2 weeks. They kept us together. It wasn't so much that we just had a ton out, it was the positions. We lost, I don't want to mention any positions, but there were certain positions where we lost everybody in that position. So, and that, you couldn't bring up freshmen and then go play those games and you put somebody at risk of injury. But our seniors did a great job of showing up every day at practice and motivating them, practicing hard and doing what they're supposed to do, doing what a senior is supposed to do. And I think that was vital in turning the season around, or at least getting it started to be turned around.
Well, and that's one of those things too. I know we talk about sports all the time, coaches do, about maybe helping you handle life and adverse situations. What you're describing is one of those situations where, now those seniors and underclassmen as well, they face something that's challenging and tough in their life. This is something they can certainly take as an experience that'll help them through those times as well. Coach, that Columbia win still gives you a chance really to finish as high as second. Obviously, you'd need a little bit of help, but, a playoff, I know you don't like to totally talk about this yet, but playoffs are looking very, very realistic at this point. Again, you're 3-3 overall. You're 1-1 in league play. You did have those cancellations that we talked about. Centennial, you couldn't play. I know you wanted to play that game. And then Summit, the way that works for our audience, we've talked about this before. Summit gets the win. You get basically a no contest, so it's not a win or loss. But coming in 3-3, 1-1 in the league, taking on Lincoln County at home tonight has to be really, really exciting for your team.
Yeah, we're anxious to get going tonight. I mean, it's going to be a challenge. They got a really good quarterback that can run all over the field and make plays with his feet and then throw it over our heads. And so it's going to be containing him is going to be the key. So I mean, but just to come off that 1-3 start, to be able to put ourselves in position to even be playing for the playoffs. You know, nobody was talking about the playoffs, you know, after Shelbyville and just all those. But now we're starting to see a little bit of the benefit of the hard work and just being the competitive nature that we are. So, you know, hopefully tonight we'll take care of business. And if we win out, we'll be as high as the 3 seed. I don't think Shelbyville's going to lose. So if we win out, we'll be as high as the 3 seed and we'll travel first round. And, you know, we've had a little bit of luck of traveling the last few years, so we'll go give it our best shot.
Well, and, you know, something Tate Matthews and I talked about earlier this week, that you're going to be one of those teams. And I think you'd be coming in almost with a playing with house money kind of attitude. You'll be the kind of team that a team doesn't want to see, a team that's getting better all the time, young guys who are getting experience, doing a good job really as the season has progressed, taking care of the ball. Not many penalties, maybe not as many as you've had early in the year, which again is a sign of a young team maybe getting better. So I think you'll be one of those teams that a home team wouldn't be totally excited about seeing. And certainly, even though a lot of these guys didn't necessarily play, you've got that history of doing well. I think players take great pride in that and have confidence. Coach, let's talk offense, and we really can't talk Page High School offense without mentioning your junior quarterback, Jake McNamara. Jake, obviously, first-year starter. You had Mr. Walker back there, who was really, you thought about Page High School football. I think you thought about Cade the past few years, but been impressed with Jake's play. Not only has he played well, but to me, what makes it maybe even more impressive is he's playing behind that inexperienced and young offensive line.
Yeah, Jake, and I've told a lot of people this, and, everybody knows what I thought of Cade Walker and Zach Mizell in the past and Magochi and those guys. But, if you take the complete package of knowing the offense and your athleticism and throwing the ball and running and able to make plays and his intangibles, Jake probably is the best quarterback we've ever had. I mean, he's incredible. Some of the stuff, he lines up everybody. Cade was an incredible athlete. He can get in and out of trouble and scramble around and get the ball down the field. But Jake knows the offense, and he's taking the reads, and he'll correct the reads of the receivers. And, he's special. He really is special. And quarterback Colin Hurd, who is pushing him, who is going to be tremendously special as well. So we're very lucky in that position to have both Cade and Colin. And I think it's always better when you got somebody pushing you. Colin is a big, thick kid, has an absolute cannon arm. He's a pitcher on the baseball team. As a freshman, he's thrown 81 miles per hour. So he can throw the ball 55, 60, 65 yards easily. So him and Jake together kind of give us a combination where they're pushing each other. And Jake has really responded. There for a while, he's all we had, until we got that offensive line figured out. The last week or so, we figured out a little bit of a running game that's helping Jake. And, we only had to throw the ball 15 times last week, completed 9 of them for 250 yards or something like that, 3 touchdowns. That offensive line and running the ball made that possible, and it takes a little bit of pressure off of McNamara.
Talk about the performance of Gunnar Gist and Aston Snyder for your team. They played well also for the Patriots. Yeah,
Gunner's a basketball player and football player. He's very quick and he's very reliable. He'll run the comeback route, great hands. He's not the most aggressive receiver. When he catches it, he's going to look for a way to get out of bounds or get down. But, when you catch it, as long as you catch it, I'm okay with that. Sox, a little bit more physical player. That's Aston Snyder. It's his nickname, Sox. He's a baseball player. In fact, he's got a scholarship offer to play baseball. But he's just an athlete. Great hands, catches the ball, not afraid to get hit. He's all over the field. You look at Siegel game, and I bet he played 115, 120 snaps and through dehydration and everything else. I mean, just a mentally and physically tough kid. and both on a lot of fun to coach.
Coach, I love that you're mentioning the other sports that these young men play. You know, that's something I've always really enjoyed and liked as a coach, those guys that play multiple sports. And you're really one of those guys. Not only do you talk the talk, you walk the walk. You're really, really big on guys playing as many sports as they want to play.
Yeah, you're only young once. And I think all of us, when we get older and get my age, you start thinking back, you know, I wished I'd have played this. I wish I'd have done this. I don't want these guys to ever have those wishes. I want them to have those memories. And I want them to carry that with them for the rest of their life. So I want them to wrestle. I want them to play basketball and baseball and soccer and everything they can do. Very small percentage go to the next level and are D1 athletes or even D2 or D3 or NAI. And so, I mean, to cheat them out of their high school career and the memory is, to me, that's just sinful. And I think that we're wrong if we coaches do that. And on top of that, I think it makes them a better all-around athlete. You know, you work different muscle groups and speed groups that you do in basketball that you don't in football, and vice versa. You know, you get leverages in wrestling that we can't necessarily manufacture in football. So I think it just makes them a better overall kid, a better individual, and a better athlete to play as many sports as they can.
Very well said, Coach. Let's talk a little bit about your defense. You know, something that stood out to me in your game last week, I think it was 13-7 at the time. Columbia's driving the ball at the end of the first half. They get the ball first and goal. You end up holding them to a 22-yard field goal. I'm assuming going into the half, that was really kind of a momentum boost for you guys. And then in the second half, after their first possession, I don't know if you realize this, they only ran 2 plays on the positive side of the 50-yard line the rest of the game.
Well, you know, I actually read that in the paper, and I did not realize it at the time. You know, our defense is taking a lot of heat on stopping the run, and we work very, very, very hard on stopping the run. That's really never been too much of an issue before us. You know, playing a freshman there and a couple of sophomores and those guys, they've taken a lot of heat, but they've taken coaching from Coach Klug very well, and see them respond that way was, first of all, it kind of took some burden off my heart from worrying about it all the time. But they played together and was able to play more physical and get off blocks. Defense coaches felt like they really had Columbia reeled in to what they were going to do or try to do. And sure enough, they did. You know, that first drive gave us a little bit of problems, but we jumped off sides twice, gave them a first down before they scored that touchdown, back-to-back plays. So defense played really, really well. And the strength of our team, our defense anyway, is that linebacker group. And that's where we are senior heavy, is that linebacker group. And they stepped up and played pretty well.
Kason Walker with a couple of interceptions too for you, Coach.
Yeah, he's tired of hearing about his brother and hearing about how athletic Cade was. And Kason's another basketball player, football player, and baseball player. So he's great hands, great athlete. You know, that's his second one of the year. He's the one to turn around the Siegel game with a 97-yard touchdown interception return for a touchdown. He's a player. He's a playmaker, and you know he's a scrapper and a competitor that likes to compete and don't like to lose at anything. So I mean, you can put him in any drill, and he's going to try to win that drill.
Well, Coach, good luck tonight. You've done such a great job this year. Obviously, the past couple of years as well, but to me, this year stands out as much as anything, just because the times we're going through, the youth that you have, the league that you play in. And I'll say this, Coach, and I mean this as a compliment. You know, I said this to Coach Crawford earlier too, earlier in the year when we talked. You're one of those guys to me, when you think about Page High School, you think about Charles Rathbone, and that's definitely a compliment to you. I think a lot of people feel that way.
I appreciate it. It also means I'm getting old. So
I think he said the same thing, by the way.
Yeah, but no better place to get old at than right here at Page. You know, it's a great school. You know, I think the world of Dr. Hill. You know, she has been absolutely just a breath of fresh air for me personally. You know, I really enjoy working for her, and I love somebody that just tells us the expectations and lives by them and follows them, and she does that. And our parent group and the Booster Club all the way around. It's just a great place to be, and I'm very proud to be a Patriot.
Well, it's obvious it's a good fit. Good luck tonight, Coach. Again, Page will host Lincoln County tonight. Thank you for joining us for the Coaches Show. We'll see you next time.